And we're back with part two of What About Nutrition as we look at kids' immunity and some of the issues. We got to talking about sugar and things like that, but I know we'll get back kind of on track here.
Sure.
Got a great segment here. We are sure happy to have all you folks listening. O'Fallon Nutrition is in O'Fallon, Missouri, down on Veterans Memorial Parkway on the west end of O'Fallon, there south of I-70, close to JJ's Restaurant and all that. So, and I was just in there in your store the other day, and what a tremendous store, and lots of your people are very helpful.
Thank you.
Some great stuff. What do we have for part two?
Well, for part two, in 30 seconds or less, I'll summarize part one, which is basically that studies have shown that sugar suppresses the immune system. And so we don't want to feed our kids too much sugar, first of all, if we want them to have a strong immune system. I suggested to everybody a couple weeks ago at that MOPS group that asking yourself, where's the protein, when you feed yourself or your kids is a great way to help ensure a balanced meal. So folks tend to focus on the starch, like here's your pasta, little boy, but we need to ask where's the protein with it so it's balanced. And then we can kind of move forward. You know, one fun thing is that chicken soup is kind of an old wives' remedy for illness, and there's actually been studies done. One of the studies was done in my hometown, Omaha, at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and they studied the effect of chicken soup on immune system health. And without going into a lot of detail, it improved it. In particular, chicken soup that's actually made from a chicken where you've had the bones in there and stuff, so you get the collagen out and all that good stock. So that's a really fun little factoid. If anybody wants to learn more, they can Google chicken soup and immunity, and you'll find there's some real science behind that.
Fascinating.
So, you know, beyond this, so we reduce sugar and we use things like chicken soup, and we ask ourselves, where's our protein when we eat? So beyond that, so here's where supplements come in. On a very basic, sensible level, you know, what about nutrition? So a lot of kids are deficient in a variety of nutrients. They're picky. They eat limited diets. We all know that our soil is deficient in a lot of nutrients, so our crops are not as rich as they ought to be. So it's very common for children to be deficient in a variety of nutrients, especially things like zinc and selenium. And there are studies that show that proper levels of zinc and selenium have hugely beneficial effects on the immune system. So those are things that are found in a typical good quality kids multiple vitamin. And at O'Fallon Nutrition, we sell lots of good kids multivitamins. They're not pricey. The vast majority of them run around 10 or 12 bucks. And you're going to get things like zinc and selenium, vitamin C, all of the B complex vitamins. Vitamin A actually also has really important benefits for the immune system as well, or beta carotene, so you don't get too much of the toxic form. And then vitamin D, we all know, has been gathering tremendous amounts of publicity for its immune system health benefits. I actually brought in a little study, which I won't read all of, but the question was, can vitamin D supplementation prevent flu in children? And this has been looked at in studies. So in this particular study, they found that the kids that were getting 1,200 international units of vitamin D3 per day, which used to be considered kind of a high dose, but now is not really considered all that much, 1,200 units of D3 per day, those children had about half the rate of influenza A versus the kids that were given a placebo.
Wow.
Placebo-controlled, double-blind study. If you want to read more details on this, I pulled this off of the website of one of our vitamin companies, Now Foods. It's www.nowfoods.com. You can click on Health Library on the left, and then it'll have a little section that says Health Articles, Technical Articles. Click on that, and they have a beautiful little menu of articles. You can click on children, or you can click on things like vitamin D, and you can find studies such as this, and they're short little articles that are easy to read. So multivitamins can have a huge impact on immune system health as a result of providing zinc, selenium, those other antioxidants I mentioned, etc., as well as some vitamin D. It's becoming very common to possibly do like a second additional vitamin D supplement with kids. They're very, very cheap. 90 days worth runs something like $7 of D3.
Yeah, can't beat that.
So can't beat that. Another huge thing is probiotics. We used to have a flyer that was on our probiotic refrigerator in our store all through the last 2 winters, but it got too old and we need to replace it. And that flyer was quoting a study that was done 2 winters ago that showed a 50% reduction in cold and flu symptoms with children given a daily probiotic.
Wow.
If somebody wants to find it, just Google daily probiotic and kids cold and flu, and I'm sure they'll find it. But a 50% reduction And that's
Man.
because these good bacteria do things like manufacture interferon and act as natural competition to harmful microorganisms that might try to take residence in our body.
Amazing.
You know, we all see these people using all these, gels and things like that to kill the germs, etc. And there's something there, but we've also heard about the fact that sometimes we can kill too many germs and start becoming susceptible to them,
Yep.
or we create these superbugs. You know, the ones that don't die, then they reproduce, and then their little baby germs are really tough against these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about here is something called the biological terrain theory, which is this idea that if we regulate the environment inside of our body, we can change the environment so that it's less appropriate for harmful microorganisms to take residence. And basically, probiotics do that. Probiotics change the environment inside of our body. They change the pH. They manufacture compounds called bacteriocins. That word is bacteriocins. It's going to be a buzzword in 5 years. You mark my
Really?
words. And probiotics make those, and bacteriocins are natural antibiotics manufactured by probiotics within the human body. Bacteriocins. So, huge benefit of probiotics.
Wow.
Now, there's also, what do you do if you're sick? And in stores like ours, we have a couple of sort of categories that can help people, deal with that. First of all, there's homeopathics. And in homeopathy, they just use very, very tiny doses of naturally occurring substances. They're actually regulated as drugs by the FDA, so they are approved for that. And we carry a variety of homeopathic remedies at O'Fallon Nutrition. They're wonderful for kids. They don't interact with drugs. You can give them to kids as young as infants. So there are homeopathic remedies for things like runny nose, cough, colds, restlessness, flu. Oscillococcinum by Boron is specifically for flu. It's a best-selling flu remedy in Europe. Big one here. That is awesome stuff. And then we've also got really cool herbal remedies like elderberry. Google elderberry and flu. There are studies on DART analysis elderberry. We happen to carry a brand called New Chapter, which makes a elderberry produced using this process called DART analysis. And it was compared to Tamiflu in a study a couple of years ago, and it performed almost exactly as well as Tamiflu, but without any side effects. Elderberry has an impact on what they call enveloping viruses.
Wow.
And in the studies, it seems to dramatically impact their ability to reproduce and make baby viruses. So elderberry, really cool stuff. Olive leaf extract, another potent antimicrobial that can be safe for kids to use. Of course, we sell Sovereign Silver at O'Fallon Nutrition. Silver has its controversies, but actually the stuff is very, very safe, particularly if you get it from a good brand and it's not homemade, so that you don't know how much silver is in it. So I suggest everybody consider something like Sovereign Silver. They can Google that and see all the science behind that brand. They're the best in the industry. And then there's even, things like vitamin C. Humans are one of the only mammals that don't manufacture vitamin C in their bodies. Earlier we were talking about ancient humans and anthropology, and dogs manufacture vitamin C in their body, and dogs manufacture something like 7,000 to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C per day, depending on how large they are. And so a lot of people think that this is an error in human metabolism that occurred sometime in our past, and that maybe we were supposed to make vitamin C, but we don't. So it's only us and guinea pigs that don't manufacture it. And of course, depending on what you think about the past and whether or not we had any link to primates or not, but in nature, primates consume a lot of vitamin C through fruits and their vegetarian diet. Humans don't necessarily consume that much vitamin C in a modern society, and studies have shown immune system benefits from vitamin C. And of course, Linus Pauling, the only man to ever win the Nobel Prize twice, and one of those Nobel Prizes was awarded in biochemistry, which is really what we're talking about. Linus Pauling wrote the book, Vitamin C and a Common Cold, in the 70s, and I suggest anybody curious, look into that. So, with an immune system, we want to not weaken it, which means we don't want to consume that much sugar, and we want to be eating 3 meals a day, and we also want to be aware that lack of sleep has a huge impact on immune system health in adults and kids. Stress and food allergies. I should have a couple words on food allergies.
Okay.
So the biggest food allergies that I zoom in on are wheat, dairy, and sugar. often those food allergies, if they're present and the person is eating those things, end up creating other food allergies. And this is as a result of effects they have on the digestive tract and inflammation, etc. So I suggested to this MOPS group that I spoke to a couple weeks ago that it's not a terrible idea to see what happens if you take your child off of wheat or dairy for a week
Right.
and just see if you see any improvements in their health. Some kids will, some kids won't. But those are the most common food allergies. And if food allergies are present, they tend to create respiratory allergies. Julia Ross talks about this in her food allergy chapter in the Diet Cure. So if we're seeing children with sinus issues, seasonal allergies, respiratory issues that are allergically related, asthma, of course I can't say anything that cures asthma or diagnose it or anything along those lines. However, I can suggest that people consider whether or not their child may have a food allergy, particularly to dairy or wheat or sugar. And often eliminating those food allergy foods can have a huge positive impact on immune system balance, which can help people tolerate allergies far better. So when we see respiratory allergies, we want to consider whether there is a food allergy at the base. Everything we talked about today can have a positive impact on seasonal allergies. And also at O'Fallon Nutrition, we sell products like Red Remedy's Children's Sinus Support, which includes ingredients like quercetin and stinging nettle to calm down the histamine response. So we have products for that as well. And Steve, I know we're running out of time, so I'll kind of wrap it up so we can kind of have our little chit-chat here at the end.
Well, yeah, I just want to thank you again for another great show and call this the show on kids' immunity. And kids are back in school, and it's the weather's changing, and so on and so forth, the original broadcast of this show. So we encourage you to tell your friends about this show, All About Nutrition. The buzz is happening. We've been doing this since May of 2011. Please tell your friends and neighbors about the show. It's What About Nutrition, and the shows are archived on your website, which is O'FallonNutrition.com.
That's right.
O'FallonNutrition.com. David, once again, we'll be back next week.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. It's really fun to be here.
All right. It's O'FallonNutrition.com. Check it out. And, of course, they're located in O'Fallon, Missouri, like I said, on Veterans Memorial Parkway over by Fort Zumwalt Square next to JJ's Restaurant. You'll see it right there. O'Fallon Nutrition. Steve Casper, David Gall, have a great weekend, the rest of it anyway, and join us next time around for What About Nutrition on Westplex Radio.